Good day, fellow adventurers. Might I say, I'd like to like half of you more than most of us deserve. It's been a while. Glad to have you back. Come on in. Don't worry, be happy. Welcome to Dresden's Tale, episode 59. This is season 3, volume 3, chapter 55 in our contagious tale. This is high military fantasy, the kind that needs heroes. Ours is Dresden Fane, a dwarf, a warlock, a bald little man with a bad attitude. He's a warrior of the Stone Clan, cultivating his way across the fertile fields of our imagination. I'm Lewis Nichols, your dodger, your evader, your procrastinator, etc., etc. I'm the guy who wrote this crazy thing, a project spanning 2 decades and a whole cartload of Word documents. Thanks to YouTube, I now have a reasonable way to pass it on to you. Sorry about the end of last episode. We were talking about some important stuff, and the sound effects just went a little off kilter. But it's all under control now. Really, it is. So, what do y'all think of the Inquisition? It was established by the Stone Clan and quickly adopted by other clans, eventually becoming fantasy's first NGO. Its job is to keep an eye out for Laraquesh spies, but that quickly expanded into a sort of secret police, judging the worthiness of warriors. They often determine how clan magic and other goods are distributed to houses, institutions, or individual warriors. Maybe some inquisitors take their jobs too seriously, but somebody has to do it. I don't mind telling you, Dresden is going to have some ups and downs with them over the years. Secret police versus stubborn dwarf. What could go wrong? Alright now, what else? Did you know warriors are discouraged from specializing in ranged weapons throughout the Celt culture? It's not considered an honorable form of combat. That's not to say bows and crossbows are absent entirely. They're great hunting weapons, and sometimes terrain or circumstance just makes them too obvious to pass up. You may find the occasional squad of archers, but let's call it an entry-level position. As the warrior gains the ability to learn new skills, they move on to more interesting melee weapons. You know, like spears. What's more interesting than a pointy stick? Oh, hey, I see Dresden. Little too much of him, if I'm being honest. Let's go ask him how he's doing. Here in Opal, it's Oot's 3rd day, 2,052 years after the fall.
Tribulations 24. Spare not thy scrutiny for one's neighbor, for when the last is gone, we will have only ourselves to devour.
Dresden flinched, but Liz didn't hide her wandering eyes. I'm sure they know we won't leave with you here, she told him. Oh, they know. All the more reason you should. Find a fighting team and be gone. Be gone. You be gone. You can leave whenever you want. I at least want to stay long enough to see if you're the spy. Dresden grunted. Funny. Ralph squawked. It was pretty funny. You know the priestess, Dresden pointed out. I don't see why you can't get her to let me out of here. We've been together for a while now. The pterodon fluttered his wings. I tried. She thinks I'm too gullible to serve as a character witness. So, what about you and Kira? Is that her name? The little dwarven girl? Liz clarified. She's not a dwarf, Ralph explained. Grace tried to explain it to me, but you weren't really listening. Proof you're not serious about her. Lust, not love. If it was love, you'd be listening. I bet you don't even know her trade. Oh, of course I do. It's wood. She's trying to find better sources of olive wood. She made me a soup bowl out of the stuff. It's about yay big, and one side comes out like a funnel. Slips right down the beak, right down the gullet. I can't wait to find some soup. When she gets back after the war, she's going to challenge for a better spot in her hometown guild. Shit, maybe you do love her, Liz confessed. You dummy. The two turned back to Dresden. Ralph asked him again. So what about her? We saw you talking to her. I've talked to them all. There's nothing else to do, he insisted. She's not even the prettiest girl here. Ralph looked around until he spotted a Pat with a sizable chest. Stay away from that one. She'll knock you out first time she turns around too fast. What? No idea what you have for human women. I don't have anything for them. I'm going back to work before somebody thinks I'm lazy. Dresden left the two at the fence, returning to the stone he'd been trying to liberate from the pit. While he worked, he daydreamed about getting the hole deep enough to provide lasting shade, but figured it would take him months to accomplish the task. How long could they really hold warriors? It had to be over soon. The clank of hammer against stone and wedge was irregular, even sparse. Dresden worked more than most, but he was still a little ashamed he wasn't doing more. Being there for the wrong reason wasn't an excuse for laziness. The stones they cut were for the good of the settlement. He owed it that, just for the food he'd consumed. You're always working so hard. He thought about where his eyes were going before he looked up. He tried to meet her gaze, but she wasn't looking at his eyes. I really don't know what I'm doing. It's hot, and I have a headache from the passions this morning. It'd be nice to get my hat back and the rest of our clothes. She didn't say anything else, just began to work nearby. It was over an hour before either of them spoke again. I saw you fighting for the hammer. You're aggressive. Usually not. I was trained to fight in order. I was. I don't know, maybe I still am. I'm a member of the militia of Biona. Maybe next year I'll get into one of the PMs. The Wolf Swords are the church's starter PM in southern Moldav. We're not that organized where I'm from. But you're a Campbell. She shook her head. He liked the way her body moved when she did it, and when she smiled. The Inquisitors said I was Helvrani, but I'm not really anything. I live in a little town. It's called Greenvale. Not much green around here. It was a full minute before she responded. There's a lot of green on Vool, you know, and a lot of water around the pedestry. We don't have it coming from the skies, like other places I hear about, which is weird. She stopped talking for a while, soothing Dresden with the steady clang of her hammer. I don't understand the ecology of this place at all. Do you have normal forests around Greenvale? She smiled. Yes, well, I guess. Cedar, oak, pine, spirit maples, cottonwoods. Is that normal? Sounds normal to me. I heard somebody call the pods nodes. It's a common misconception, Kira told him. Anastasia Dimitri, my mentor, she says a lot of Campbells think they're connected to something called the ethereal mists of water, and that's what makes the water. Anna says it's actually a confluence of Kerfulum, and it's one of the forms of magic. Dresden thought about what she said. Are you sure she didn't say ethereal meniscus? Maybe. She looked embarrassed. And maybe Kerfulum is Kersulum? She shrugged. You know about that kind of thing? He pointed at his bad eye, as though that alone would explain his knowledge. It's pretty basic for a warlock. I was wondering about your eye. It's pretty cool. Kira stepped towards him, leaning in close. A rush of emotion made his heart seize. Images of Leith clouded his head. It's nothing. He threw up his arm, catching her off guard and pushing her back. He turned and paced off at an unsteady gait. He told himself he wasn't running, but only stopped when he was able to laugh at himself for doing exactly that. He needed a distraction. Chief Buck is a damn fool for a million reasons, but recalling Mont Cathander from exile is just ignorant. Macelius was not a spy. Dresden was sure of it. No one of that type would draw so much attention to themselves, but it made his blood boil to hear a fellow stoner insult their chief. Another one he was sure of, for exactly the same reason, was Einig, a human historian with opinions common to many, but few spoke so loudly. Chief Buck was trapped into exiling Mott. We're all equals under the chief and have a right to know the truth. He served his punishment, and it's time for forgiveness. Prater says he'll be back. A female Monkey tried to participate. Says the arrow will fly. Yep, Tribulation 16. He spoke in Canal City on his way to Cadiz. That's what the crier said. Yes, sir, the arrow will fly. Well, I guess that settles it, Macilius gave a sarcastic grunt. You can fail to believe.
Shut up.
This is a serious conversation, the latter stressed. Now, where were we? You were saying something stupid about Buck being forced into declaring exile, Macilius spat. The arrow publicly stood against Einfar, right there in the great square. He should have been executed. He misspoke. My ass. He's a military genius. He single-handedly is responsible for the entire militia system we operate under today. The argument wore on, as it did every time the two got within earshot of each other. It drove Dresden mad, but he was enraptured by their banter, a counterpoint to every point, the passion in their statements. Yet he found flaws. Both were locked into their views, and they circled back to defeated points of logic. Each wanted only to win, not to resolve the argument with any discovery of truth. I'm sorry I crowded you. Dresden took a steady breath. Kira had found him. It's just a woman I was in love with did stuff like that. She'd get right up against me and, well, she did the things a woman might do to a man she loved. It's just, she only died a few months ago. You mean Leith? Grace told me some of it. I'm sorry. She looked over at the two men still arguing. Will you teach later? I like listening to you much more than them. He had a seat on a broken stone block. I was thinking about speaking on Bayless. I spent a lot of time with some of his priests in Georgetown. I don't have any of my books, or I'd read from them. You have books? Copies, or at least had them. I don't know if we'll get our things back or not. I hope so. She looked worried. I don't have any way to get new things, not even a slip. You'll have to fight the war naked. He stopped the words from escaping. It would have been rude. What are you exactly? Levadia. The elves call us dwarfs sometimes. Half elf and half dwarf. Different Valido can't breed like that. She gave a coy shrug. We came from the creche. It's like a magical portal. For 100 years, way before the Celts came, different peoples have come from all over the place, different places, none with any memory of their home. Sometimes they come through singly, other times in groups. One of the biggest single migrations was the Levadia. My parents and 50 others appeared on the creche about 80 years ago. Then, about the time I was born, the elves found us and converted us. This war is the first time so many of us have left the pod. Dresden tried to process the information. Did she mean gate? Can I do something? She asked him. He was suspicious. What? It's just the hair on your chest. It looks stiff and soft at the same time. I just wanted to touch it. Is that okay? I just want to know. He didn't exactly answer, but gave a non-committal grunt. Her hands moved swiftly before he could change his mind. She reached out, firmly grasping his chest. Growling a little, her eyes locked onto his. The hand lingered. Oh, sorry. He realized the contact had caused a reaction. Embarrassed, he turned to make one final escape. He was safe for the rest of the day. Well, what do you know? Dresden is making new friends. How long do you think Macilius and Enig will be in the story? And what about that new Monkey? She seems interesting. Donald didn't even get a speaking part today. I know you miss his enchanting voice. Speaking of which, I thought I was making some progress last season in my voice acting, but it's been pretty rough this season. It makes me think I should have taken more interest in theater as a kid. Who knew? You know, Disney, this part is for you. This is a pretty good thing we've got going on here. Anytime you need a new animated series, we'll talk. What would a mouse do with this level of cartoon violence and sexual innuendo? Not that that's been an issue or a concern at all this season. Well, folks, it's time to do the stuff. Like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. Leave a comment. and let me know if there's anything story-wise we should be talking about. Visit my fiction on Amazon for Kindle. Leave a review. Most importantly, please remember to have a great time. See ya. Cheers.